Good morning, everyone.
This is the federal fiscal year 2024 Action Planning Committee meeting for the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. And we will go ahead and get started. First, we'll do the mandate. Are we going to show that on the screen, or how do you?
Share it on. Everybody should have one in their packets.
Oh, then I should look. Okay.
But I can hear it on the screen for the people that are watching.
Do I need to read it, or
Oh, you can.
that's what we're supposed to do? Or?
I mean, I was gonna kind of like go through it.
Okay,
You guys
can do it, 'cause
examples.
I'll be talking enough. You can do it.
Let me get it shared. Hold on 1 second.
And do we, I don't see what we do, the attendance, but I guess I should just say while you pull that up, we do have a quorum with myself, Libby Earhart, Angela Horman, Eric Taylor, and Jill Hano in attendance.
I have done all again. It's taking just a second. So the mandate is in your packets. So hold on. Okay, no more echo. So the mandate is according to the DD Act, and it states that councils are to engage in advocacy, capacity building, systems change activities that promote self-determination, independence, productivity, integration, and inclusion of people with developmental disabilities in all facets of life. So as we're going through the plan and you all are creating new activities, new initiatives, we want to make sure that each initiative either falls within advocacy, capacity building, or systems change. And I'm not going to read those to you guys, but examples, if you want examples of advocacy goals, if you look in goal 3, are advocacy activities. Goal 3 has a lot of advocacy activities, and we have a copy of the current plan in your package as well. So if you look at goal 3, activities 3.1.2 through 3.1.5 are all advocate for. So those are examples of advocacy goals or activities that are in the current plan. Capacity building, the examples of those are in goal 2, the IAG, where we're training first responders, 2.2.1, and Niagara, where we're doing the emergency preparedness training, 2.2.2. Those are examples of capacity building. And then lastly, systems change. I didn't even know why we in the current plan. But what is the systems change?
A lot of our systems change efforts usually take the in the plan are usually written as or we're trying to affect some systems change there. Those
You go like can and partner.
See,
no, well, can and partners are both self-advocacy leadership.
Okay.
So your your systems change activities would be, if you look like goal 2 and goal 3, when there are things that are like advocate for this, advocate for that, those are typically your systems change types of activities.
Okay.
That's not necessarily what it has to be, or it has to be written, that's just
Examples.
examples in our current plan.
Okay.
Restrictions on the use of funds. So as we are planning, Amy will be keeping track of the amounts of funding that you guys allocate for different activities. But the restriction is no supplanting. We can't supplant federal funds to replace non-federal funds. And we can't fill in gaps. The council funds can be used to duplicate or replace services for individuals with disabilities in their families. And then any conflicts of interest, just make sure you refrain from participating in the decision or vote regarding a council contract to a recipient where the member knows or should have known that that he or she has a conflict of interest in the award. So just keep those in mind as we're talking about different activities that you guys want to add for the 2024 action plan. Does anybody have any questions about the mandate or the overview of restriction of funds?
So our next item on the agenda would be our review of the budget. And just to note, all of these documents that you refer to is in the packet, that's also online, correct? Yep. They're all online for those who are watching our YouTube channel.
So for everyone here, you should all have a sheet that looks like this. So this is the budget sheet. Now, what the amounts that are listed here are what are in our current fiscal year 23 plan. That's what's allocated out for activities currently. We this year have a little bit more money to allocate out. So we're going to work on allocating out $722,000, whereas last year we had $700,000. So this just gives you a starting off point. This tells you the activities that we have now that are assigned amounts of money in our current fiscal year 23 plan. So it gives us a starting point to work towards in 24. The ones that are marked in red are activities that the staff feel like we're not really getting where we need to be with these activities, and it might be time to end them. The one caveat to that is going to be 3.1.1, which is the LaPi Alliance funding for $40,000. We cannot continue to fund them because they're receiving state general funds now with the post-secondary inclusive education fund. And so our federal funds cannot go towards the same things that they're doing for that. So that one will have to drop off. And I think that's it. I have a sheet. I'll continue to update things as things are allocated in this new plan.
So a couple of things. Thank you, Amy. I want to encourage our committee members to please ask questions. If you have any type of questions about this, it's important that we ask questions. The 670, that's towards the bottom of the total obligations for continuing projects. Is that of what's in the list or what's in the list minus the red?
No, that's what's in the current list.
The current list.
The whole list plus what's in the red.
Okay.
And then there was that one last year, the Youth Leadership Forum with new activity for $30,000. Those two totals combined got us to the $700,000.
Gotcha. Okay, so the 670 and the 30 gets us to the 700 from last year.
Yes.
Okay, so whatever we take out of this, plus an additional 22,000 would be kind of what we can do on maybe new projects or.
2,000. Where?
So it's not on this. But this year we have $722,000 that we can allocate to contracts, whereas last year we didn't have 700,000.
You did just say that, I'm sorry, Bambi.
No, that's okay. Thank you for asking that question. Okay, any other questions about this budget document?
Y'all say the ones that's been read, that y'all, that y'all saying that y'all not getting funded? I mean, y'all don't think y'all need to fund it no more on the ones in the red?
Yeah, the ones in the red.
And as we work through the plan, we'll tell you why, but for all of those, we've funded them for multiple years. And so we're kind of getting to the point where we feel like we've reached the most we're gonna get out of those activities.
What you mean when you think you're getting most out of activities?
So like for videos and visual materials, and again, we're gonna talk more about it as we hit each one of these activities as we go through the plan. But just for example, videos and visual materials. We have, our contractor has put out videos, we share them. They don't get a ton of views. They're visually appealing. I think they tell good stories and they have good information, but they're not really doing a whole lot in terms of getting a lot of views and
That's,
making a lot of change.
so that's dealing with the YouTube station,
So they're archived on the council's YouTube page, so you can go and view them. I think one of the ideas that they had for this year was taking some of the clips from the videos that they have, and making other videos with them, clips, but they're all archived on the council's YouTube page. So you can access them at any time.
so, and board members help me out so I can get a good understanding of y'all understanding. So is it been, when you type y'all in, is y'all being shown more on the page when you're being, say like if I type something in that I'm looking in the area y'all working in, is y'all being pulled up more with that, or y'all not being pulled up with that?
Like when you're searching, no, it's not more, and we've just noticed some of the videos that are very good videos, but they've only been viewed 40-something times. And the 48 times it's been viewed, not even half the video has been watched. So that was where we shared on social media, YouTube and the website, but they're just not getting the traction that we were hoping to get.
So I have a question. So how do you get that information out? Like, I know being on, talking to certain parents, they're not aware of these videos, like parents that are in the school system, and I'll say, oh, you can go on here, but if I wasn't in this room, they probably wouldn't know. So I think that's probably part of it, the marketing side of it.
Yeah.
No one knows that they're really
Thank you.
readily available.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which I find that more and more that comes up during these council meetings, which is to nobody's fault, to the fault of nobody, and just think that, in my opinion, and I'm just a peon, but we're now I lost my train of thought.
And we're gonna have a lot more time to debate that when we get.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Y'all kind of understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
With-
I did. I made notes
If
too
it
about
be
that.
pushed more, so where I think we'll get more views if it's being pushed more, that where people would know what's going on, and being an advocate of the board, if I say go here and they see it more, then we'll get more views, and then that'll be where it helps a lot of people.
Right.
Not knowing, and it's open for the public, but not knowing that it's out there, then we can't get it where we need to get it.
Mhm.
Any other questions about the budget? Okay,
Um. No, I'm good. I'm good.
And I'm sorry, I cut out the turn.
oh, please ask questions.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, so we'll go on to our next item, which is review of recommendations for council standing committees. And that is in your packet. And you have the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee and the Education and Employment Committee. So that person for self-determination, do you want to do that? This is that person for that. Oh, Brent.
Sure. So for self-determination, community inclusion, under objective 1.1, there was a recommendation to establish an initiative that would educate and train individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities on voting awareness. Also under objective 1.1, they wanted to continue the current initiatives, which was the videos and visuals project, and ensure that there were videos specific to voting and accessibility. And they wanted to continue the supported decision-making training. And then under objective 2.2, continue the first responder training and the emergency preparedness and response training initiatives.
Okay. Any questions about those?
With the emergency response training, when you say that's training people to know how to.
That one is specific to more so like emergency managers and people that are responsible for developing the plans for people with disabilities to be prepared in emergencies. So this is with Niagara University. And so they've done, it's usually they have a 2-day training. It's a 2 full days, or you can attend a half-day training on the very end, which typically that half-day training, people with disabilities might be more interested in that one because it's kind of more of an overview. But a lot of times in the full day trainings, we get emergency managers, sport coordinators, or provider agency representatives that are there that are helping others kind of develop their plans in emergencies.
But I have no question on that. That's basically training them how to handle people with disability, or that's.
No, so the first responder training that's dealing with first responders is going to be more of kind of that sort of interaction and how you should interact with people with disabilities and be prepared when you do have to engage with them when you're responding to something. The emergency preparedness and response training, there is some conversation about how to interact with people. That's not the primary focus necessarily. It's based more on needs and how to be prepared to support those needs during emergencies.
I think it's just I got a lot of questions, but I'm just asking the questions. I understand you saying it's basically I'm talking to them with basically with their needs, but I think.
Well, there's a lot of materials too. It's not just it's more of an interactive conversation, and there's a lot more, at least in the emergency preparedness training, there's a big manual that you get when you participate, and it has everything you need pretty much to develop your plans. Because the idea is you're not just training that individual is going to take that information back to their entire organization and revamp their entire organization's plans and thought processes, how they are prepared.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions about those? And we will delve deeper into these, but we're just kind of overviewing right now. And then the Education and Employment Committee. Do you have any?
Yeah, so I don't know if you all remember from the last council meeting, the Education and Employment Committee, they had a very robust discussion. And they didn't make any recommendations, but the full council decided to make the recommendation that you see on the screen and in your packets. And that's to add an activity to contract with an entity to build, to assist with building the capacity of advocacy regarding education and employment.
Any questions about that? Okay, so those are our recommendations from our committees, our standing committees. And now we're 34 minutes ahead of schedule. Good job, guys. So first thing is our discussion of goal 1. And just to remind you, goal 1 is if you look at our plan, you can see all of the goals and activities listed there. So we're going to be talking about goal 1, which is self-advocacy and advocacy leadership. And so the first contractual item listed is partners in policymaking. It's activity 1.1.1. And I guess as we go through, like when I call out each activity, is a staff person gonna just give a quick like synopsis and then we have a discussion about it? Is that gonna be the process?
You do it that way, sure.
Okay. So partners in policymaking.
And so the synopsis probably,
Okay.
like that's the status report that's included in your packets. We'll probably just give y'all just an overview of what we have in the status report. And then if you guys have questions, because the status report is gonna have staff recommendations for each activity.
So everyone knows this. You guys all have this. You're looking at this right now. So partners in policy making, that staff recommends that we continue this activity level at current funding level, which is $90,000 for the next fiscal year, due to the increased cost associated with inflation, such as the hotel expenses and travel. Do we have any questions about partners? I guess, I mean, I have a question. How many people do we have in the current class? Do you have this in here?
The current class
13.
is, Jill is on top of things.
Well,
today.
Jill.
Take it over.
There's 13 participants in the current class.
Okay. And
There were more accepted and then a number dropped before
Okay.
the.
Because I was reading the status report last night and I was confused because it said 20 people were accepted, 15 accepted, and then 13 started.
Yes, so
Okay.
basically we accepted 20. Of those 20, before the class started, 5 of them backed out. And then the class started, was supposed to start with 15, and then we had 2 bail the day of, no shows the day of. Things
Okay,
happened and they needed to,
so in the 2 that were no shows didn't show up in February.
Well,
in March.
it's required in partners that you be there at the January session in order to continue. And so some situations came up and they were unable to attend
That's-
January. So we encouraged them, they were great applicants, we encouraged them to reapply and hopefully maybe attend another year. So that's where we're at 13 at the moment.
Like, you know.
so, historically, partners, this is a big drop.
Historically, from what I know, we would normally accept 25 applicants. And so then there would be a bail, bail, I'm sorry, a no-show of 5 to 10.
I don't think that's accurate. That you didn't have 7 people drop from a partner's class that I ever remember.
My class was like, my class in 14 started up with like, I think 15 of us. Like, so like that was a small class 10 years ago. So
I know this year we had accepted less off the front end because we were having some staff changes to the coordinator. We weren't sure the budget,
Right.
what we were going to be able to afford.
Mhm.
So that's where we had accepted 20 as opposed to accepting 25.
Right, I remember that.
And then I think, just my personal opinion, I think because so much has changed going back in person,
Right.
we had more people that were not as flexible as pre-COVID
Right.
life. They've realized it was going to be a lot more of a commitment with family and childcare and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, we're definitely making goals to accept more, have more alternates this year.
Yeah.
And hopefully get the process started a little bit earlier.
And that's what I thought that was probably the case. So I think we need to just really pay attention to that because it is a different time than it was, before COVID. So, because this is a big investment.
Mhm.
I mean, the one thing about, $90,000, if you have divide that by 20 people, then that's a different per person investment you're making than 13. So I think, look at it from that standpoint. And then I can also remember, prior to COVID, that we had 35 applicants. So when we selected 25 applicants, it was people who were like, that was a privilege that you were selected out of, so maybe just some more awareness. I don't know, engaging more.
And I think like with the new coordinator, I don't know if everybody knows Rebecca Fruge, but she is a partners graduate. She's very passionate about partners, and I think she's gonna do a very good job at marketing it. Just probably even better than we were able to, because we were going through the transition last year. We weren't able to put as much into the advertisement for partners. We reached out to other agencies, but I feel like we didn't have nearly as many applicants as they've had in the past. But I do believe with Rebecca in place, there's gonna be more of a marketing for partners and outreach with alumni, trying to get alumni active again and helping to recruit new people to apply for partners. So I do think it's gonna get better.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that for, I don't know when my last meeting is going to be, but it's going to be, I only have 1 or 2 more meetings. So for people who are going to continue, like to really push that, I just want to get that dialogue on the table that should be our expectation. That we should have 35 applicants and, we shouldn't have anybody dropping out because we have 25 people who feel privileged that they were selected. Of course, people's going to have sometimes you have some like major health issue or something like that, but that should be where we get back to. That should be the expectation because it's so important. I think that the strength of our council is that really intense training people get through partners. And now we have the youth leadership forum, which I think is going to be a great benefit to that too. So.
And then I always felt that partners is such a good, or partners, graduates are such a good tool for council members.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so our next, are there any more questions about partners today? Okay, do we now need to decide on the budget? Do we want to wait and go through all of it and then decide on how we want to do
think last year they decided on each one, like,
So we don't have to go back.
yeah,
Okay.
so if you guys want to keep it, yeah.
And adjust.
Make adjust, yeah.
We still have money left over or we've overspent.
No. Who's in charge of the payroll for that individual?
My coordinator. So the contract is with Families Helping Families, at the Crossroads in Regis.
I have one question too. As far as you're saying, recruiting new members. Once again, if I run across parents, I mention it to them. A lot of people just not aware. I think, can we spend money from this to do more marketing about it? Because people don't really know that partners exist
Yeah.
in certain communities or populations. Because I found out from an IEP facilitator. I'd never heard of partners before. And when I had it, she said, hey, have you ever been to partners or you know about partners? Like, no, she said, you should look into it. So that's how I found out about partners. I didn't know anything prior to or anyone else that had been in the program. So I think sometimes the main thing is we're not reaching every group, or community or people, parents that really want to do this, like you said, because you do provide the childcare on the weekend, which is awesome. So that's all I have to say.
That's my point too. We need to basically do more advocating.
Yeah, more outreach or something.
Outreach where we could be pushed out there where they can know and not always search. And some parents don't understand what they looking at, so it's not interesting to them because they don't understand.
Exactly.
So I know, like, just to answer your question, Angela, the 90,000 is mostly for like the
Just
travel and the hotel
okay.
expenses
Okay.
and the speaker cost. And so she wouldn't be able to use that 90,000 for marketing.
Okay.
So, I mean, we're dependent on Rebecca as part of her job task to make sure she's reaching out to every region where there's alumni. And I think she has a plan
Okay.
that she's gonna implement once this current class that she has graduates. When she has more time in July, she's gonna dedicate more time to building up that alumni network, making sure that the alumni are active in all the regions so they can, do outreach to parents and let them know about partners. I think it's gonna get better.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Because if you had so many people drop out of a class, that extra money, I was wondering, could she spend that on that, on marketing, for the following year and even.
The
reaching out
best
to the
marketing
alumni?
is us as alumni.
Yeah, okay.
So it's really to connect. I think that building that network. But I think it's a good point because one of the issues we've had historically, and I'm just imparting my all my experience here, is that we've had a lot of people in certain regions that have gone through partners and not because they wouldn't choose an applicant, there were not applicants in certain regions and certain demographics.
Right.
It was very heavily, if you look at the list of people who's graduated from partners, it's very heavily moms. And so we're going to reach out to other moms. So there has to be some strategic planning and how do you outreach to people who are different than the alumni, because you'll then just continue to get the same type of people in the same regions, the same kind of a role. So I think we as alumni need to help her while that's her, she's getting paid. We need to really engage and help her in
And
that.
I would welcome if you would reach out to
Mhm.
me.
Yeah, so like I said, I think she has a plan. I don't know, like if y'all talked about it, Hannah, like her plan to reach alumni, for marketing and to like target alumni in all the regions. I think we talked about it when she first started, but I don't think she's had time to dedicate to it because she started in December and then the class started in January. So she's been dedicating most of her time to.
Any other questions? Okay, so what is the will of the committee? The staff has recommended that we keep this item budgeted at $90,000. And we'll if the will is to keep that in there, again, it's not a final decision. At the end, we'll go through and make sure we're still okay with all the recommendations. But as of right now, are you guys okay with keeping at 90,000 for partners?
Yeah, because isn't that gonna go towards the 2024 year also?
Yeah, it'll be for the next year, because
Yeah.
we've already funded this year, so it'll be for.
So if we have a new individual that's already in place, that's going to make lots of changes from
Mhm.
the past. I think the $90,000 budget is fair.
Okay, so I don't think we need a motion right now. We'll make a motion at the end. Okay, so we'll go ahead and keep that 90,000. Okay, the next item is activity 1.1.2, which is LaCan. We're all familiar with LaCan.
All right, a little bit about. Okay, go ahead.
So this is the council's advocacy network. So if you are signed up, which I think most of you in this room are, for any of our alerts or information that we push out and stuff that's coming from LaCan, this is where you get your alerts about things we're doing at the Capitol, Yellow Shirt Days, what we're advocating for. This is kind of the group of folks that help the council push its agenda forward, if you will. And so right now, this is funded at $215,000. We have leaders in every region. When we were at full capacity right now, we are still missing a leader in Region 9, which is the North Shore area. And we've been trying to fill that position for a few months now, more than a few months. Almost a year, yeah. And not much interest has been an issue we're having, basically. The rest of the regions are full. It's just Region 9 that we're having a trouble with now. Back in the day, LaCan used to be funded at $250,000. And we bumped it down over the years to $215,000. We're recommending bumping it up to $230,000 for a few reasons. One is, if you look at some of the average part-time salary rates out there, like I looked at ZipRecruiter, Talent.com, a few things that you use for job searches. In Louisiana, your average part-time salary is anywhere between $23,000 on the low end. Well, about $22,000 is your average. If you're looking at a median, the low end is $23,000, the high end is $44,000. Right now, in this fiscal year, our leaders at part-time, which is about 25 hours a week, although I would say most of them probably tell you they work more than that, are making between $15,000 and $19,000. And so the previous year before that, it was more like 15 to about 18,000. And so what we're trying to do, which was also the wishes of the council back in 2016, which a lot of you were probably not here, some of you were. Whenever we merged our networks, we used to have two different networks for advocacy. We had our home and community-based side, and we had our education side. It didn't make sense to really have two, so we kind of merged them together. And the intent of the council at that time was to offer more competitive wages for our leaders. Whenever it comes to part-time and this type of work, it's kind of hard to use the term living wage, because I don't know with the funding that the council gets that we can ever get to that point. But we certainly can provide a more competitive wage for our leaders. That is the big trouble we're having whenever we do have vacancies, which happen from time to time. Starting is like $1,200 a month. That's not much considering the amount of work you have to do. Most of our leaders, if not all, have at least 2 or 3 jobs that they're currently working. And we do try to offer, when funding is available, like incentive payments. So the better you are at your job, you might get some additional funding at the end of the year. And so that can kind of help offset, but it still doesn't get us close to the average that we're trying to get to. In previous years, I've tried to do roughly like a 3% COLA adjustment. I've kind of tried to follow what the going, and COLA is the cost of living, increase. And so I kind of try to base it off of what the state is doing at the time for state workers, just to get an idea of what sort of percentage rate they have out there. Another thing that we do is we try to do things incrementally. as far as our leader salaries. So one is, we have some leaders that have been here 20 years. And so most of our leaders, once they get hired, they start off at one area and we kind of bump them up until they get to a veteran leader kind of pay, which is after a few years. So we've been able to increase salaries over the years, which is why we're kind of getting to the point where we're maxing out at our 215, because we have had turnover in our leaders. And not saying that I anticipate turnover coming, but we do have leaders that have been around for a really long time. They might want to retire one day. They might, I don't know. That hasn't been said that they're going to do that, but that's something I'm trying to anticipate coming. We're going to have a new group that's going to want to replace our veteran leaders at some point. We also need to offer a more competitive wage when you're first starting out. Our travel costs have increased. So, I mean, just a few years ago, we were paying 50 cents a mile. Now I think it's 63 cents a mile. 65 cents. We'll have to change that for the reports. It keeps changing. So for instance, if I bring in a leader for Yellow Shirt Day yesterday from Shreveport to Monroe, that's $300 right there just for that one trip. And that's a Yellow Shirt Day at the Capitol, and we have anywhere between 10 and 20 of them a year sometimes. So travel costs, luckily with COVID, we didn't really have a whole lot of travel costs, but I anticipate this year and future years those are going to go up. And just like all your pocketbooks, ours have been hit too as far as supplies. Computers are a lot more expensive now. I have $400. I used to get you a good laptop that does the basics, and now those are $600, $700, $800. So those are things I anticipate coming, which is why we're trying to bump up that extra 15,000.
So
Have
the
you
extra
filled any-
15,000 would do what to the McCann leaders pay?
So right now, the extra 15,000, it would let me do that 3% cost of living adjustment for our veteran leaders. We have a few newer leaders. I have one, two. Sorry, I have one leader that I would bump up to veteran leader pay, which would be a couple $100 a month for me to bump them up to that veteran leader pay. And then we have a new leader that I would need to bump up because she has been here for a year. So that would let me bump her wage up by about $100, I think. And we have that vacancy in Region 9. I haven't fully figured out yet what we could make that offering salary. Because again, if I bump that one up, then I have to start looking at everyone else and kind of where they fall. But I'm hoping we can bump up the monthly salary for the veteran, not veteran, like the new position that is open. That would also add additional $1,400 would go into our supply budget. Part of that supplies also is not necessarily just computers and things, but if we have additional funding, I'd like to start researching some professional development opportunities for the leaders. So right now we don't pay if they want to go to conferences, and we don't pay if they need, if there's some kind of training course or something that they have out there. So this would give me some wiggle room to be able to start some sort of application process where they can ask if they can attend some of these things.
Is it an overall like pay with, or is it different by region?
No, it's the same across regions depending on how long you've been here. Like once you get to that veteran, all my veteran leaders have been here at this point. All of our veteran leaders have been here 5+ years, some in the 20+ years. They're all at the same. It's not based on region.
So there's a top pay.
There is, yes.
Okay. And you anticipate if we can increase this, that you'd be able to increase that top pay?
Mhm.
Okay,
I'm looking to increase everyone's pay.
right.
Is essentially what I'm trying to do.
Well, that's a given. I mean,
Yeah, and then also try to have additional to do the incentive pay that I had talked about. So that's where, so everybody across the board, you kind of have this pay. But if you're hustling and putting in more work than the others, you have that opportunity to make more, which some people do. I've had people that have made almost $3,500 extra in a year just from that incentive pay. Because they get people to the table at the Capitol, they get people to their round tables, they see all their legislators. Those are the types of things that I reward, especially now, because since COVID, those things have become a lot more difficult for them.
So
to
you
do.
had the incentive pay before this extra 15?
Yes, it has gone down. So at one point in time, we had an extra, it's like 20,000 in incentive pay, and it's bumped down by probably a good 9,000.
But if we're losing 2 of these, why can't we do more to,
You're losing to
I'm sorry, losing these 4 that were in red, right?
Well, potentially. So the one thing that I will say is you could, $250,000, $249,000 is a state threshold. If you go over that amount, we open up a different type of RFP contractual process. So I believe that the council has always tried to keep all contracts under that 249 level.
249.
Yeah, 250
250 is
sets
the-
off a new standard of what you have to do for contract.
But I mean, even if we did 245, we're still under the 250.
Correct.
And at least would entice people to continue to want to hold a part-time position that they're not working part-time for.
one thing I will say, there usually is money on the table that's left, and it varies from year to year that we do try to use up once we get to that spot. So for instance, with this budget, I always have to plan for the worst for things like travel and hope for the best, right? Because I can't really predict how much traveling we do in a year. But so usually what we try to do is if there is travel left at the end of that year, that we can move over to the incentive payments and try to use that as more money that we could try to pay them. But salaries are the one thing that I know for sure, like I know how much that's gonna cost me. The other stuff, it's kind of hit or miss, and whatever's left at the end, we try to predict that so we can send more over to the leaders. But also some leaders might have more travel costs than others. So let's say if a big barrier we've had lately has been rentals. So leaders have not been able to get a rental in their region, so they haven't come to different things that we host because they haven't been able to get here. So for leaders that have been able to get here, I can give them that remaining travel budget to get them here. So we kind of shift things around that way.
What? Rental for what?
Like a rental vehicle. If they need a rental to get down here, yeah.
Okay.
So, let me ask this question. Do you think that's, no question is no. The reason not, that's probably, do you think that's what some of your problem?
I always think pay is the problem, or a big problem. Because again, you also have people that are working 2 and 3 jobs doing this one. Then we run into issues of, I need you here for this meeting, you've got another job, you're doing this and that. And I'm not gonna lie, not saying I'm a stickler, but LeCan is your priority when you're my LeCan leader. I need you here if something is happening. And so then we start running into those issues. So it'd be nice if we can give them more money. And not saying that they would quit those other jobs, but they certainly wouldn't be as reliant on other sources of income if we're able to bump them up. And to be honest, most of the leaders that we have, well, looking at the list, I would say all leaders, they're not doing it for the money. They're doing this on their own time anyway. This is just helps them be paid for work they're already trying to do and gives them a bit more resources to do things that they're passionate about. So I think we all know that this isn't going to be something that they're going to get a full-time paying job out of. We understand that. We also have limits within what we can spend at the council too. But we can make it more enticing.
That's gonna be key though.
Yeah.
So
Now, if we do hit that 250 max that we're talking about, that does kind of tie my hands for future increases. I mean, once I hit the top, I hit the top, and I can't pay any more than that.
So the adding the extra 15,000, that would increase just the minimum payment of an extra $700 a year? Is that what you were saying? Or an extra 700 a month?
No. So for instance, like I think the lowest paid leader I have at this point, because they are new, this would bump them up by $100 a month, so we're looking at $1,200 extra a year for them with that 1,500.
That's got, you gotta do more than that.
The others, like one leader from last year to this year had a 15% jump because I'm trying to move her to the veteran status. So we move things up that way. And the rest would just be a 3% based on a cost of living adjustment, which I can do more. I'll give
Yeah.
more,
I have a question.
but that's not
So,
for me to decide.
The money that you would, the increase, you're talking about increasing the wages, but how much money would cost for like conference and personal development? Those classes tend to be expensive. So how much would you spend?
It really depends. So some of the conferences we're kind of tied in that it isn't a situation where I would anticipate being able to say, oh yeah, you want to go to that conference in California and send you over there.
Right.
These are things, maybe virtual conferences that are charging or conferences that are here. So in the past, there's been, maybe like a $100 to $300 registration fee that we've done before when we were able to, or it might be something where I can pay your registration fee and for your gas mileage to go from Shreveport to Baton Rouge to get to that conference or different things like that. We're also bound by some of the state travel regs. So, if you're just going there for a day, I can't pay your food and your lodging and all that anyway. But we can try to pay for some of those things. As far as other personal development, it's really going to depend. I know in the past, for instance, when we've done staff trainings here at the council or whenever some of our FHF centers have done trainings, they may have paid $1,200, $1,500 for training to be developed and then would train all of their staff. That I have not done a lot of research on yet because I've never had the money to do that. I've mostly focused on the money that if you do increase, it would go to salaries to see what I could do there. But then hopefully I would have some to be able to do some of those professional developments. Because right now we do about 2 trainings a year for them and it's stuff that we put together, but we're not trained trainers, if you will.
Yes.
We do our research and we try to put something together, but it would definitely be more bang for your buck if we could get someone in that can develop something specific to their needs, that this is what they do. And I think there would be more benefit to our leaders, if not every year, at least, maybe every other year, bring them in for something.
Thank you.
I have a question, Brendan. What qualifies veteran leader status?
Right now, we start looking at about I think it's 5 years.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah. Once you get to 5 years, we pretty much start making sure that you're getting paid what our veteran leaders are getting paid.
Do we have a lot of veteran,
One.
okay,
3, 4.
wait,
But you had said one.
Oh, no, I have one that's gonna move into.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
One that's gonna move into that status.
But you have others.
But I have others that have been here. for a
wow,
while now.
you didn't-
We really only have,
because I've been with the council for a while now, so, cause I think I've through the years seen in turn over in every region, but I've been here.
yeah. We've pretty much been stable in all regions except for, 1 and 10, we've had a lot of turnover, but our current leader has been here, I guess, about a year now.
I know she doesn't plan to go
Region
anywhere.
4, we used to have turnover, but that has not occurred in quite some years now. And we've pretty much been stable everywhere until Region 9 recently, because our leader became the FHF director there. Typically, when we do have turnover, though, you can look at, is it more of an urban or rural area? And that's going to determine if I can fill somebody. So when I get vacancies in 1 and 10, Region 2 is also new. She's been here not quite a year yet. And the issue we're having in Region 9, urban areas, very difficult to hire people. More rural areas, I don't have that much challenge, if you will. But those people also stick around quite.
Right.
Do we have any more questions on this?
Is there? So like are you like the supervisor of the Looking leaders or?
I'm the manager of the program. And so Keisha and I spend probably, well, not probably, more than half of our days on LeCan. That's our baby.
And is there somebody below you?
Keisha is the monitor, and so she's more of the direct contact with the leaders on the day-to-day, minute-to-minute. And
There's a
therefore-
fiscal agent. It runs.
Oh, there is a fiscal agent, correct.
It runs through an FHS center.
That
Is their employer of record.
Got it. Okay.
that's roads.
No, that one is Southwest.
Southwest.
Yeah.
Until 2016, all LeCan leaders contracted directly with the council. But now they are an employee of the contract holder, which is FHF of Southwest.
How do we increase that money?
What do you want to increase?
That's y'all. You just say what you want to say, and then I figure out how to make it work with.
So it's currently 215. The council's recommended to go up to 230. The max we can go up to because of the state requirements, it would be 249. So
But
that,
I mean, I'm even comfortable with doing 240. Because $700 a year is just
That's no money.
not really that enticing. I mean.
Oh, I know.
Hey,
I base it off of the cost of living rates. It's not, it doesn't end up turning into anything once you consider the inflation cost of everything.
Hey, I make $8 an hour at a job I love. So, I mean,
Like, if you made $12 at the job you love, you might would love it that extra much more.
I was kidding, but yeah. Yeah,
So.
I mean,
I'm comfortable with 240 because I still think that we have an opportunity at the following year to, if we need to increase again.
Right.
Then we can increase again.
And plus it can include
I mean,
the personal
240.
development. I mean, it does.
okay, is everybody okay with just penciling in that recommendation or,
Mhm.
okay?
can we get?
Yeah.
What's that, Jill?
She's taking a second to chew.
Oh, okay. Can't see you.
Can we get a copy of the person then in black and white? That says what specifically the money for this current 15,000 goes to,
Like the current budget.
like, what, yeah.
That would be for, I guess, if y'all want to provide that,
But I know,
that would be in the
That-
contract docs.
I know that that might not be feasible,
Can I get back to you?
public.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the 240. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, 240.
Okay, so we'll move to the next item, which is activity 1.1.3, which is advocacy events. And the staff recommends that we continue at that funding level of 30,000, and that's basically for the roundtables. And just to note, the roundtables happen every year before the legislative session, and we've been doing them virtually, but next year they'll be held in person with the virtual option.
Hopefully.
And they want to keep it at 30,000. Any discussion on that?
If we're doing okay with 30,000 and you don't need to ask for any more.
I think it's fine to keep it at that.
Okay, so keep it at 30,000. Is that the consensus?
Yes.
Okay, that was easy. The next item is activity 1.1.5, and that is video and visual materials. Okay, so that's a contract we currently have with O'Neill Communication. They've created videos, and that those videos are listed in the recommendation document that we have. The videos are on the council's website and on the YouTube page. The staff recommends discontinuing this activity for fiscal year 2024. And as Amy had said earlier, the participation has been low. And also, if y'all look at the list, they've created a lot of the videos and a lot of the
So
topics.
we get to keep those videos
Yeah.
and we can just market those videos.
Yeah.
I'm okay with
That was
that.
the thing that I spoke on. I think we need to do more marketing on it, and I think it would raise up more if we do more marketing on it, and then people know more about that. So I think that's one thing we should try to keep, because it would help people knowing more about it and just get rid of it. We do more marketing.
But I don't think the videos and visual materials, that marketing budget would not come out of that. It's just the production and video,
Yes.
not the housing or anything like that. We own the videos, is what they're saying.
Yeah, we own it, but to get more things that pushed out there and more.
Where would the marketing come into play?
So that will be on our end, and we push them out. We push them out through LADDC News. We push them out on social media, our Twitter and our Facebook accounts. We can.
So basically, video and visual materials, that has nothing to do with marketing, that has only to do with what we're paying that entity to produce.
To create them
And we
produce
don't
them
want
and
to
edit
do
them.
it any longer.
That's what our recommendations are. We don't want to, we're recommending that you all, because they've done a lot of the videos that you guys wanted. If you look at the list on the side, they've done a lot of those. And like Amy said, they're really good videos.
Are we asking like our families to push them out? I mean, I know, I'm thinking we can put in our newsletter that goes out, I'm just thinking other ways to be able to market it.
So no, I don't think we've asked the Families Help and Family Centers to push them out, to push those videos.
I think
I'm newer to it.
You sent one of them, Nicole? Oh, you were in one of them.
Promote it, Nicole?
When they came out at the time.
Yeah, so maybe just remind, I'm being reminded, okay, I'm gonna make a note that we put something in our next
Also-
newsletter, so.
I don't know, so y'all are gonna do the marketing, is what you're saying?
And
That's currently how it stands.
unless
but
you
like-
want a more robust marketing.
Exactly.
With
If
like
you want,
professional marketers.
yes, then that would be a separate contract.
But
That would
what about
Women
outreach to
make
the
those-
children's hospitals or the big hospitals that have big management? I mean, even at school, but in the hospitals, you're gonna find most of those kids who have severe, disabilities and developmental disabilities and things like that. And so why not
even like the parent magazine that you can get for free at the clinic.
Like case managers
Have
of those
publication.
hospitals that deal strictly with like the peds floors. And at least giving them a resource to say, hey, look, not sure you know, because that is part of their job.
Mhm.
I think it needs to be.
Cause this is becoming, this issue is the same issue is partners in policy, like where do we market, how do we market, like in, I think FHF does a good job, like Miss Nicole Flores, do you market tip as well as the videos?
Definitely.
Okay,
But it needs to be equal across the board. So if we get rid of that $36,000, is there an opportunity to possibly contract somebody to do it for 6 months or
To do
to
marketing.
do some,
Actually,
at
do a
least a
campaign or something.
like a strategic plan to do some sort of marketing outreach, to gather the resources and the information that needs to be done with a $36,000 budget.
So you guys can change this activity.
I mean,
And
I just don't, I think we already have the network to contract with some outside entity to market it. Like, it really is like you send it out to, I mean, I think it's an easy thing to reach out to, you know, ask OCDD to send it out to their support coordinator, send it out to LGE, to the Department of Education, ask them to send it out to all the special ed directors. Like, that's a, Brenton's looking at me as though, stop talking, man.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong.
nothing is changed in 4 years.
Those, we do that stuff.
But
I was just gonna say, we did it for
and
partners. I mean, we
here's-
sent the stuff. out.
Here's the problem. So for instance, I mean, I just talked about how I can't find a leader. I send it to these people. I get no interest. These videos, we send it to people. There hasn't been much interest. And so I don't know if it's, do we have the network and push it out there? We do. So I don't know if there's a bigger problem in that the network isn't interested or they're not getting it. People are saying they sent it and maybe they did. I don't know where the breakdown is.
But I know we say we do a lot of things on Facebook, but you got a lot of older people that don't do Facebook on the internet the way we internet.
Right.
So I think, and older people are raising grandkids or they're raising,
But this isn't gonna be, I mean, you have to get on the internet to watch the video.
right?
True.
Just to know that they're there, I guess is what I'm saying, kind of.
But
And also, I'm sorry, Brendan. Also, I heard someone say the poor coordination, if I uttered the words tip to my support coordinator, she probably looked at me like I had 3 heads. So I don't know if that's the norm or, but so there's that issue with support coordination too.
I understand you on that too, you can give it to, but we just need to market, but then when, like Brett say, we can give it to them. But the support coordinators act like they don't even know what you're talking about, but we still need to push it where parents know what's out there, what's needed, what's for them, the information that they need. But we need to figure out a way where we can push it where it's out there. Now, can we put this, I'm just throwing it out there, can it be put in newspapers where they put all that junk in my mailbox? Can it be pushed in there? I mean, I can, that's Wednesday. Can we put it somewhere in that? I mean.
Well, that junk mail costs money, so you don't allocate money.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I just drag it in the house every day.
If I look through it, they have some of them. That in there. I never see anything about us, you know, and I know they do a magazine sometime once a year that's special needs or something, parents, special needs edition. But I've never seen anything
About the DD council.
right, you know, can or whatever, so maybe. I don't know how much that costs.
I don't like word of mouth, know someone, they may know.
Yes, yes.
I got,
Cause I share my PD with my
Yeah, I
pediatrician and everything. She's like, oh, I'm like, well, then I tell her, and she's, well, I'll tell this parent, but it's usually just word of mouth.
So I have a question for the staff. So like the goal, it says produce and disseminate videos. And then kind of lists what those things are. We don't need to produce any more videos, I don't think. We have a pretty good list, and it looks like if you look at the list, they're gonna be meeting all those.
Right.
So what we need, though, it seems like in the conversation, is we want to disseminate. And so for the council, I guess for the staff, I mean, like, can that just be like one of our goals with no money behind it, and just continue to push it out in our social media, our emails, ask our people that we contract with, like Family Self and Families and others, to push that out as they can through their sources? Would that be appropriate?
If there's, I'm just gonna say, that's totally doable with the no money. If you would someone to like try to see about putting it into magazine, anything that would be print would obviously need.
But I don't know how you would put print a link to a video. I mean, maybe if you
I mean,
use.
I'm thinking more of like, it's partners, if you're trying to get the partners application out and you wanted to have printouts and have them posted different places.
Right. That's what I mean.
There's gonna be
Then there would be
money.
anything
tied
that would
to it.
involve,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
there needs to be a
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these videos.
yeah.
what does everyone in here, do you guys share it on your social media pages? Yourselves, like each council member or you know, because when I go on
I share,
the
like, when
site, I
we do
don't really see a lot
I
of
share the
shares.
alerts on my personal,
You do? Okay.
Facebook page. Yeah. Now, if every council member is
Did
doing that,
that.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
No.
one of these videos has 17 views, so
Right.
probably everyone in this room hasn't watched it.
Right.
Just looking at the map behind it.
So then we have to say, if we're gonna say as a council, we put in the plan and just say right here for 1.1.5, we could take out the produce and the first two words and just do disseminate videos and other visual materials featuring information. Then that is on the council members. We're saying that this is our goal and it's on us, and that's on the
Right.
staff to give it to us in a way that we can then, put it on their Facebook page, but we have to do it, in whatever capacity we can. I think that's something that needs to be stressed as well. Like, it's our goal.
Others to watch it, we don't watch it. So I gotta watch
That
it.
person, but can someone define the word disseminate?
That's true.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Share it.
Right.
We can push it off.
If you wanna put share.
I was just curious.
And push the dog out there and win.
Yeah, I think we need to use though language. I think Jill has a point. We need to use language that
Okay.
everybody understands. So just
Okay,
put
curious, that trying to make a point, but that is a good point, baby.
we can use it somewhere else. So change the goal, take out produce and disseminate and put the first word as share. I think share is the simple language that everybody understands.
Plain
That's what I think,
language.
plain language, yeah,
Advertise.
share.
I like advertise.
Can we, and this is just a suggestion, take out the topics, because I mean, we know what they are. We have them on the YouTube page, just to make the goals shorter.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Or the activity shorter.
Mhm.
Okay.
So these 5 videos, you're gonna do a FY 23, correct?
Correct. They're all- it's not-
Yeah, member. All right,
So we're gonna draft the,
Disseminate.
disseminate, and we're gonna draft the money,
And we just take out the money out the budget.
so
Well, basically, it's not taking it out. Technically, it's that we're not gonna put it in the budget.
Right.
We're just, there's no funding for this activity.
that would. So would that. Never mind.
Okay, our next item will be supported decision-making, which is activity 1.1.6.
So we went to zero.
Yeah. And so what this is a contract with the Arc of Louisiana. They're training individuals with disabilities, their families and professionals on the supported decision-making process. They've trained 86 self-advocates, 262 parents, and 346 professionals. They're trained, the professionals trained include both legal and medical professionals. See. The ARC has mentored and currently mentoring 9 self-advocates through the process of supported decision-making. Staff and the contractor feel this activity has reached its full potential, although there was a recommendation for self-determinate from the committee to continue. The staff and the contractor, which is the ARC, are recommending to discontinue this activity. Any discussion? Do you guys want to take that recommendation and not fund this activity again?
Is there any like more specific reason why?
So Kelly, Kelly Monroe with the ARC.
Yes.
So, when she and I talked about it, she said they feel like they've really approached training on this topic in a lot of different ways. They've trained families, they've gone after the people in the legal profession, people in the medical profession to try to hit all of the different angles that they can. And they've done all of that training. This is currently the 3rd year of the contract. So they just, they don't know another new way to approach it. And they feel like, they've hit as many people as they're going to hit on this.
And I think currently they're doing the people first chapters. Like they're currently training the chapters across the state. So they feel like Amy said, they've hit as many areas as they possibly can.
I don't think we need to. You think we need to? Thank you.
Wow.
I guess the real issue though is, can people, if someone wants to put in this supported decision-making, what do you call it? It's a plan. It's a legal document.
It's notarized, yes.
Yeah,
It's an
so
agreement.
where does someone go to get information if they say they want to do that? So like, I think that's where we're kind of at, like, does people have a resource to be able to do it?
Just gonna be people who want to make that decision.
Okay,
And the training
also
materials that they have are
Yes.
still gonna be available.
on their website. So a part of our contract was that they put the handbook on their website, and I think that they're gonna continue that page. So they'll still have access to the handbook
Mhm.
and even sample examples of notarized agreements with supporters. So they'll still have those documents that'll be available to them.
Okay. Okay, so is everyone is agreement with the recommendation to might have that activity, right? So we're taking out the entire activity, right? It's not just that we're not funding it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So our next activity is activity 1.1.9, and that is the Louisiana Youth Leadership Forum. And of course, you guys know that is a new initiative. It's going to be a 3-night overnight training program for high school age individuals with developmental or other disabilities. It includes career awareness and leadership development. The Louisiana YLF is also receiving $15,000 from the Louisiana Department of Health. Is that right? Or is it Department of Education?
Department of Education, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was the education. And may receive funding from Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, depending on the delegates selected to participate. Then the program will take place at UL in Lafayette. YLF is only accepting 13 delegates for 2023, which is this summer, and would like to increase the number of delegates to include more people and the number of days as well. So we're already funding them for this summer. We funded the 30,000. So what we're talking about is for 2024.
Yes.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm sorry.
So in your packets, the coordinator for the program is here, Ms. Lillian Dejon. And she included some information about the current applicants, the current staff that they have for the YLF that's coming up in July. And then she also included information about why they want to ask for extra funding and what that funding will go toward. So Lillian, do you want to come to the table and kind of present to the committee?
Hi, everyone. So I know the big question here will be, why are we asking for more funding when we haven't even had our first forum yet? And this is the dual answer. But in a nutshell, additional funding would help us achieve goals of long-term sustainability and expansion of the program. When YLF was so planned under the DD Council, our ad hoc committee had decided that our goal would be to expand the program every year so we can reach more youth facilities in our state. And currently, Louisiana has one of the smallest YLFs in the country as far as the duration of camp and also how many delegates we accept. And that's because of funding. We will not be receiving any funding from LRS this year because the deal is our delegates have to be LRS consumers. We have received around 26 applications for delegates across the state. Not a single one of them are LRS consumers. So we will not be receiving funding from LRS. And we have a goal of expanding the program. And expanding the program also meant to long-term sustainability as well. We know that sustainability in the past has been an issue for Louisiana's YLF. It disappeared for 15 years because it lacked a sustainability plan. And this extra funding would also help us sustain the forum because we would be able to do things like accept more delegates, expand the duration, pay our staff members, which is incredibly important. One of the reasons why LAYLF ended in 2005 was a lack of volunteer staff and burnout. We want to prevent that on the front end. And also, we would like to get accreditation from the American Camp Association. We want to run a high quality camp. Personally, I want to be one of the best YLFs in the country.
But we can't do that until we have the funding to do that. And so with the American Camp Association, they provide technical support, training, and guidance. And so we've been networking with for research, ATA, guidance, UL, our research partner, and also MedCamp in Louisiana to follow best standards. So we make sure that everybody's as best as it can be. So I'd be happy to take any questions, guys.
So I have a question, Lily, about LRS. You said that they are not LRS consumers.
Correct.
Are they not? I mean, they should be age eligible for pre-eds, right?
Correct.
So why are
So why aren't they?
That is an LRS question about LRS outreach question, because we've pulled individuals from across the state with a variety of disabilities, and our 26 applicants, not a single one of them has been an LRS.
But I guess my question is either to you or I don't know, as a contractor, like if y'all had discussions with LRS, and I mean, I see you say they're not currently consumers, but they can become consumers. Like they should be able to become consumers, right?
They aren't able to become consumers. LRS will only fund campers who are currently LRS consumers. It's not potential consumers, it's current consumers. And really, in actuality, this is a 3-day summer camp for youth with disabilities. And so we know that these, youths are in high school, and we know that that's a challenging time for families. And to ask them to go through the incredibly lengthy and burdensome process of applying for LRS, I do plan to suggest that to our delegates with the goal of having some become LRS consumers. But I do not anticipate our delegates becoming consumers by July.
But it's not a lengthy process to be a pre-eds consumer. That's not a lengthy. I mean, a lot of high school students are pre-eds consumers. So I guess you just need some clarity on that. Like once you get out of pre-eds and you're in what they call it, but basically the voc rehab, the more adult, then that is a lengthy process because you have to develop an employment plan. But what do they call that? Individualized employment plan. But for pre-eds, it's not a lengthy process.
I definitely plan to, conduct outreach, with our delegates and suggest that they be in touch with LRS and utilize the resources. I can't really facilitate that as the coordinator for.
But I guess my question is though, when you reached out to LRS, and I'm sure you had like some discussions, I would hope that LRS would say, let's get these young people who want to be leaders into pre-eds. Like that discussion didn't happen.
At the committee, we had the executive director on the LAYLF planning ad hoc committee that fell under the DD council. We had the LRS executive director sitting on this committee. We had multiple conversations about utilizing pre-eds funding for YLF. That has not transpired currently.
So by that, you mean you hadn't had more conversations since then?
We've had multiple Zoom conversations. The statement that I continue to receive is that the only funding that they would be able to provide is funding for singular campers that are in their pre-eds program. So it's not a funding of YLF as a whole, but it would be funding of specific campers who are LRS consumers. And as of today, none of even our applicants are consumers.
And so did LRS say, okay, here's a process, here's some streamlined process to get these applicants to be pre-eds qualified?
Not at this moment.
So I mean, I have a problem with that. Like our state agency gets federal funding that could help fund that. So for us to give more money, like I feel like LRS needs to do what they need to do to streamline this process, right?
The dilemma with LRS, because the original plan for YLF is that we would receive funding from 3 sources: the Louisiana Developmental Disability Council, Department of Education, and LRS. Department of Ed funding has transpired. you guys' funding of 30,000 has also transpired. But LRS was always the wild card, simply because we knew that LRS has a lot of restrictions around what they can fund. Federally, they are a lot more restricted, and there's a lot more nuances to their funding than, let's say, DD Council or LDOE. And so we're able to be a lot more flexible with DD Council funding or LDOE funding. And that also benefits YLF as well to get more funding from DDC, because we can be more flexible with funding. Additionally, it would benefit the DDC to fund us more, because that's the conversation that I've heard today very frequently is outreach, getting more diversity, getting more self-advocates, getting programs of interest. We can only take 12 delegates. We've received 26 applications, which is more than we can take. Most of these applications or applicants heard of YLF through word of mouth. So we know that there is significant interest from our community. And we also had more staff applications. That demonstrates significant interest. And we also have excellent ethnic diversity. Our staff is supposed to be 11 out of 14 are people with disabilities, and our gender diversity is actually better than the else. And so YLF is going to be a feeder program for partners in policymaking, because YLF is supposed to be a stepping stone into it, and a feeder program for your youth counselors. So for us to expand our program also means that we can help you guys expand your programs as well and have a symbiotic relationship. And so asking for more funding, we can just expand that and send our, graduated delegates who have an excellent basis in advocacy over to y'all's programs to even get firmer foundation advocacy and get high quality advocates that we need right now.
And don't say a number minimum proud of you in my life.
Thank you, Jill.
And Lillian, can you just tell me, just because I may have not been listening one time, the $45,000, that is obviously to do the room and board for the 3 days, and then what else?
Okay, if you look at this sheet, it's the why give YLF more funding at the bottom, that bolded stuff. I'm sorry, Lillian, I'm answering for you.
No, but that's for the additional fund, but that's for the additional funding.
Oh, you're asking for current funding?
Yeah, with the
Okay.
$45,000 now.
Well, it's on 30. It's 30.
5 or 30.
It's 30.
30. Okay. And then I saw,
I'm sorry.
okay, never mind.
So I did not provide a budget to council right now as far as our expenses, because they are constantly evolving, especially as we're in our first year of figuring out what we need, what we don't. However, a lot of our funding goes towards things like lodging, catering, also transportation to and from the council. We're having to charter a bus, which is significantly expensive. We are pulling speakers from out of state to make sure that we have the highest quality speakers, and 100% of our speakers fund back over people with disabilities. We are having nursing staff to make sure that all of our campers have the support they need, especially if they have medical capacities. And we are paying our the rest of our staff is volunteer for the most part, but our nurses, we wanted to make sure we had good nursing staff. Background checks, custom supplies like identifiable t-shirts. So whenever we're at camp, if we see someone, let's say in a turquoise t-shirt walking across the street when they shouldn't, we can immediately identify that camper and say, they're not supposed to be going there. They need staff members, right? Name tag holders, speakers. Also, this pay does fund coordinator positions. There would be no way that you could have a YLF without a coordinator, because this is a significant amount of work. Also, that ACA accreditation that will take over a year to accomplish, but it is a standard. It is standard that we are aiming to reach, because we aim to hold ourselves accountable and create the highest quality program that we can.
Any other comments?
I have a comment. I don't know. If they fund them, she said they're currently not with ARS. Once if they get qualified with them, what happened then? I mean, once we put if I'm making any sense, what? That's just funding.
So the camp association, don't you have to be up and running for a specific amount of time before you can apply for that?
Yes, I can hear.
But wait a second, Eric was asking a question first, I think before, about if someone is if someone is an LRS client in pre-eds, what will LRS pay for?
They would specifically pay for that camper to come to LRS, so they would pay that bit of their lodging, that bit of their catering. I don't know how we break down costs or plus costs. It is frankly ridiculously costly. And if we were to, let's say we had one camper that had LRS funding, that would support a lot of the things that we need for the entire camp. A lot of the things that we are funding is for the entire camp, and not for.
But the travel costs would probably be a big,
No.
right?
Yeah, they go by state rates. So you have to look into if, for instance, UL is lodging it by state rates. So we'd have to look into if the charter bus went by state rates. And we have to have considerations like, wheelchair accessible, buses. So there are a lot of special considerations that we frankly need flexible.
But what I was saying too, and thinking, what I was saying too, if they qualify, and all y'all still gonna go through them and try to get them qualified, what happens then once if we put the extra funding on it, if I'm making sense to you, what goes on then? If y'all still trying to go through them, and then we put the extra funding, what happened then from there?
We would just have, I think if we just had LRS funding and DDC funding, we would have extra funding. I think any LRS funding that we would get would come first. Simply because of the, application process for LRS. And also at camp, we have a session or program, what's called Wildlife. And it's like a giant game of life. And so each state agency has a booth, like LRS, and we also have booths like housing, transportation, where we discuss, well, do you want to live with your parents your whole life? Do you want to get an apartment, a house? Here are your options. Just kind of this fun little record of life. And so we invite all of our state agencies to come and present and talk with our delegates about what they offer so they can understand their community resources. So we would definitely invite LRS to come and, hopefully solicit interest from our delegates to become an LRS consumer. My personal prediction is that either we will not receive funding from LRS or it would be after camp, which isn't super helpful.
It's helpful for 25. It's helpful for 24.
Put on the bus,
No,
FY 24,
yeah.
like next
Oh.
year.
I thought you said a total of 24 people, and I was like, yeah, it's a lot of people to put on a bus. I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, I can't. Oh.
I think you were saying it would help, the funding would help with next year's class.
Yeah,
Yes.
LRS. If LRS decides to join after the fact, would it if LRS going after the fact, then this their funding would go towards the FY20 or the 2024 YL.
Actually, no, their funding is delegate dependent. So.
Well,
But they'll reimburse families.
Twenty 24.
Would it operate like in Partners World, how I'm thinking of it? If two of the applicants happen to be LRS recipients, after the fact, Families Helping Families would be reimbursed just for those two participants. So it may end up being $500 that Families Helping Families gets reimbursed at the end after the camp.
Right.
So it wouldn't as much help.
Now,
Yeah.
confused on what I was trying to say, like, never mind, let me continue. I have no idea what I was saying.
Okay, and it's definitely a complicated one. And I think the trouble too is that, you know, we have to report back to our funders, reasonably so.
Right.
But with LRFs, their funding is super restricted. So if they say this pot of money, this $500 goes towards lodging, after the fact, we've already paid for lodging for camp. And if they say, okay, so here's $500 for, you know, Roger to go to camp in 2023, and this is his lodging, we cannot roll that fund. My understanding, at least, is we do not roll those funds over to the next camp. And it is such.
It would be
a very-
reimbursing though. You'd be paying for it and they would be reimbursing you for what you paid for. Not you, but you know what I'm saying? The entity.
Yeah, I guess.
So you wouldn't be able to plan too much in advance for your budget. It'd be more of like Partners, if at the end, we're like, oh, here's an extra $500 we just got. So it wouldn't necessarily help the following year, but it may help with recruiting or.
Yeah, it would kind of be a nice treat at the end, but we cannot plan it into our
Yeah.
budget. We can't, we are functioning as if we do not have
Mhm.
these funds, because as of right now, we don't, and we don't want to overshoot.
So, then correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't I hear you say something about because LRS is not reliable funding, and then we should stick with the 30,000? Because I was thinking, because LRS is not reliable funding, we should increase the YLF budget even more.
No, that's not what I was saying.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, I fully support raising it to 45,000. What I have a problem with is allowing LRS, who has an obligation to spend 15% of their budget on pre-eds, which are this population will be pre-eds. They have trouble spending their money. And it seems like, and we need to get with Melissa, but they always have trouble spending the amount that they're required to by law. So I would expect LRS to be going above and beyond to figure out a system that would allow this to be paid. And that would just be more funding for YLF, because I want to see it grow and be as big as Lillian can manage. So that's my only contention, is that LRS, they need to figure out how that can happen. And also is that these people that are going to YLF, they need to utilize, LRS needs to be something that is meaningful and helpful in their lives as they have employment. So if we can't figure this out, or they can't figure this out, that's a problem for these young people going forward. So it's something that's complicated, but it needs to be figured out, because it's not going to be any easier whenever them and their parents are trying to figure it out on their own, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I'm for the 45,000. I know how wonderful it's
Okay.
gonna be.
I'm very sorry that I misconstrued your words.
No, I'm sorry that I probably wasn't clear.
You probably were, I probably just forgot what you said, but that made more sense than me than what I interpreting it, so I'm very sorry, because I know she wants it the most, and then you're probably a third component that's Miss Nicole.
Yeah, I would say the Nicole probably
Yeah,
second,
Nicole,
and then me.
but four.
The Nicole.
And I found Nicole to Jean. How did you say your last name, please?
I'm not telling you. It's gonna be a fun surprise.
So. Where we going? I mean,
Well, we did have another question, I think, and it was gonna be about the Achieving American Camp Association accreditation, so we can answer that.
My name is Nicole Dejean, and it's okay. There's the surprise. And so my role at Families Helping Families of Indiana is special projects. So I handle a lot of policies, procedures, and for a while, creation of manuals, forms, things like that, that we're going to need to send out to, that we've already sent out, and that we need to send out to delegates, to staff, that sort of thing. And in the creation of some of these forms, done a lot of research about standards across the country for residential camps, but also residential camps for individuals with medical complexities and disabilities. And so that brought us to Med Camps of Louisiana and also the ACA, American Camp Association. And for the country as a whole, ACA sets the standard for best practices specifically for residential camps. So they offer a lot of their forms on their websites. And these are things like photo releases, the risk, understanding of risk. Now we're in a post-COVID, but we still have a COVID release, a communicable diseases release, slip and fall, all of these kinds of things that also, will fall under our liability insurance, that sort of thing. But we want to make sure that on the front end, everyone is really clear about what they're signing up for. Everybody has all the information that they need. And ACA does an amazing job of being very comprehensive with this. And again, setting best practices so you can offer the highest quality experience for not only your staff, but for your campers. So in that research, like I said, we got to Med Camps, had amazing conversations with the executive director and the camp director for Med Camp of Louisiana. They have offered, uncensored support for BioLab. They expressed that they want to be partners with us. So we are a referral source for them and they are a referral source for us. But the really cool thing is one of the things that they push, because they are an ACA accredited camp, is they push the accreditation process because they elevate that camp to the highest standard. So one of the things that you go through when you go through the accreditation process is they do site visits. So they send a team down to your camp, whether you have your own physical facility, or if you're just, if you're like us that will be functioning on a university campus, they do document reviews, they do staff training. They go from A to Z. But the amazing thing is their site, one of their site visitors is the camp director for Med Camp of Louisiana. So she would be on our regional team if we were to pursue this accreditation. So again, she has offered uncensored, we've had full access to all of their forms. We've had full access to all of their processes, any support from their medical staff. We've been provided with anything we could possibly need, but we want to have our own processes and procedures specific to YLF that uphold ACA standards, but also adhere to the culture of YLF. So that's why, the goal for that accreditation is so important. So we can marry those two. But as to answer your question, Libby, my understanding and the information that they provided to us was we could start this process, and they encouraged us to start this process as soon as YLF is open. So when we get this first year under our belt, we start the process, because it can be a 6-month to an 18-month process, depending on how complex or how much support we need. They suggested that ours wouldn't be that lengthy because we don't have a facility. So they're not going to have to look at our facilities for accessibility and safety and, all the what ifs. So does that answer your question, Libby?
So after the first year.
Yeah. And I think you can actually start the process even before the first year, but because we're mid-stride, now would not be the time. I think we'd lose the land. So do you have any other questions about that process?
And I saw some,
We've been putting
and
in,
y'all have, that,
putting in ton work and have a great team. It does something else. We serve as our YLF team. But it's been a lot because we are essentially building a program from scratch. But in the midst of all that, that's really keeping in mind that it needs to be sustainable.
no, be on your way out.
Come to FHFOA, where's the team?
Okay. Want to come to the table?
Yes, ma'am.
Chair?
I just wanted to ask, what was the total cost of the accreditation process? Like, is it a cost related to the accreditation or just a process?
So the initial, you have an annual membership that ranges again, and everything is kind of on a sliding scale, not because of your income, but with the size of your camp, the need that you have, the total population you serve. So like a camp like Med Camp would run 15 to 20 camps per, camping season is going to have a higher fee than we will. We're going to have a smaller initial accreditation phase fee, but we will have an annual membership fee that we will have to pay. That includes maintaining their standards, and again, their site visits, anything like we realize they have a crisis line. So if we have a crisis at camp, we can access that crisis line. They will walk us through that process and how to handle things. So it fluctuates, and we'll be able to provide that as soon as we get enrolled and kind of start talking to them and get some figures, an estimate with that process.
Yeah,
It's not specific,
yeah.
but
But if you're saying that it's different things, and you could actually offer really small, so they can go range off that. Understandable not having a specific place.
and as we grow, that fee, the support.
Does the annual fee go up?
It could grow up,
Okay.
Wait, so fee for what? I'm sorry.
membership to the ACA. Gold number 2, gold number 1, surviving our first one.
Okay, any other comments or questions? So we are, currently, we're funding this item for 30,000. And the council's recommending, and the contractor is asking for an increase to 45,000. What is the will of the committee?
My question is, I think it's all right, but I just want to make sure I think LRS step up and do their part, make sure they behind it like they should. I don't see no problem with it, but they need to step up and make sure it's done the way it needs to be done.
I mean.
So, and just a reminder, we fund partners at twice the amount of what they're asking for. And they are gonna have 13 delegates, which is more than half of what, actually it's the same amount that we have of partners, and we're giving we're not giving partners, we're putting up $90,000 to train 13 people, and they actually are gonna do more than 13 next year, and extend the days. So, I mean, if you want to compare apples to apples, and then this is a reasonable request.
Hopefully get them right in.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But what did you say about funding from Department of Education?
We have 15K currently from Department of Education
Okay.
this year,
So,
but that's for 2023, and I think
control you. Well,
I mean, I think that should go.
45,000.
Yes.
Okay. Does everybody agree with the request of 45,000? Okay,
you guys.
thank you, Ms. Dejan.
That's tomorrow.
Okay, guys, so the next item is activity 1.2.1, which is people first.
2.2.1.
No, it is 1.2.
so,
Currently, we're funding people first at 25,000, and the staff recommends continue this activity as to end the funding.
how much do I yell
Wyola put
45.
45,000.
45.
And so do we have any discussion about people first?
And people first is also one of our DD Act mandated activities. Right?
Yeah. No, they're not, it's not a mandated.
Oh. Oh. I'm bad.
People First is a self-advocacy network. Typically, what they do is they use the funding that you provide them and the last few years, because of COVID, they haven't always been able to do that, so they've looked for other opportunities. What they try to do is have a lot of training opportunities and learning opportunities for their members. So they will usually put a conference on every year. They did some information about voting and the voting systems that are being recommended. It's a couple of months ago. So they'll do a variety of different trainings, but what they have usually typically used the money from the DD Council for is for a conference.
And if you look in this, well, you guys will get the status of planned activities tomorrow. for January 1st to March. So they are planning their annual training for June. They've gotten a keynote speaker, and so they'll be utilizing some of that funding for the conference that they're gonna, or the annual training that they're gonna have in June.
Do they have ongoing activities? Like, don't they have chapters or something?
Every time I go on the people's first website, I'm very confused as to what it is. But the I was always under the impression that people demanding isn't necessarily people first, but our capacity building activity is the organization or activity that falls under our mandated capacity building is our people first activity, because that is an organization that provides self-training for people, for individuals with DD, but I could be wrong.
Right, so you're right, it does hit a mandate of ours, which is that we have to have activities that are developing self-advocates leadership. But we do that in our other activities too. So Partners also does the same thing. YLF does the same.
Okay, you're right.
So there's not a requirement that you have multiple activities that do that. You just have to have an activity that does that. And we have, so this does hit that too.
Okay.
But it's not required that it has to be this one, if that makes sense.
So what they're asking
To stay the same, $25,000 of funding, just like they got last year.
And what does the contract say that they have to do this annual training? Is that their contract? I mean, this is all through a contract, right? So they have some deliverables. What is the deliverable?
That they provide technical assistance and training on it. So you're right, it doesn't have to just be the annual conference, it can be the chapters too. Which they do, the chapters do training. I also do not believe that we're their sole funder. So they've received funds. Typically what they've used our money for are the bigger conferences.
So I guess the question goes to like what the impact, like was that in our report where it will say how many people they've trained or how, like those type of things?
So in the last status report for the trainings that Amy just talked about, the voting trainings, there are numbers in there to, and I think Kelly spoke on that. She said that was like a big training. They had a great turnout, even better than they thought.
Okay.
But yes, for that June conference, they will give us numbers and we will report that back to the council in July.
Okay. So,
Nicole.
yes.
Oh, okay, so.
Can you come to the table just so the mics can pick you up for the video?
Okay, for the, paper that, but for the,
What paper?
for the council and leadership training, that budget of 15,000, okay, where is?
Wait, we're not to that one yet.
That's what I thought y'all was talking about.
1.2.1. Okay, 1.2.1.
So what's the will of the committee? You want to keep it at 25 or make a change?
Where are we?
On people first, 1.2.1.
The only doing is. They can put no more in their hands and no less.
That's right, just the same.
I already,
They doing what they supposed to do. They basically doing what they need to do and they can put no more, no less, but. What y'all? No, no.
If they're utilizing it for the training, I'm not.
We can always go back once we finish if we want to make adjustments. But do y'all want to, at this point, do y'all want to just keep it the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Think on now.
how, who is the staff person for this?
Stephanie.
Oh, how long? When you're, I don't know if. Do you know when the last they got an increase?
Oh, I don't know that information. I'm not.
We
Okay.
have to look back at some other plans.
Okay.
25,000 for a number of years.
Yeah, okay,
But I don't know when's the last time that amount.
okay.
No, at some point in the last 8 years it changed.
Okay.
I remember that. I don't remember when, so, because it used to, I feel like it used to be a lot more bumped up.
Okay, so we'll move to our last one under our first goal, and that is council and leadership training, which is activity 1.2.3. And that is council members' participation in training and educational opportunities will continue to be supported. Excuse me, and the staff recommends that we continue to budget for 15,000 for this activity.
15,000 was a bump up from last year. I think in previous years it was probably around 7,000. The actual in-person conferences and activities have really, those opportunities have really gone down because of COVID. There is actually, and tomorrow I'll tell people, the disability policy seminar is coming up soon. It's virtual, but if anybody is interested in attending it, we can make that happen. We are also going to be using some of this money for the diversity, equity, and inclusion training that will be happening soon for council as well. So that's what's there. It's there for training opportunities as they come up. There have not been a lot of in-person training opportunities lately. COVID really killed a lot of that. But they'll come back.
What about the, I know you used to have the conference you went to in DC every year, the national conference.
The disability policy seminar was always in DC.
Is that what, I mean, I went one year.
CDD,
The NACDD conference.
Oh,
Yeah, that's-
we used to always have a staff person and a council member that would go.
I don't remember the last time they've had one in. There is one happening in July.
In Florida,
That's ours.
one this year
That
There's
was,
one in
in Orlando.
July.
I thought that was, what we had here in 2019 was what we went to in DC.
The council did it.
It was in New Orleans.
The
Oh,
July 2019 was the one in New Orleans that NACDD did. They go to a different place every other year. So it's DC one year, then they go somewhere else, then DC again, and they go.
Okay,
Yeah,
so are they doing one this year?
Yes.
they are.
In
And who-
Florida.
They're in July.
Is somebody going?
I was going to go and the previous chair was likely going to go.
Okay,
We're now kind of in a weird chair situation.
Okay.
Because it's right before a new chair would take place.
right.
So,
I mean, I know I went one year and I've never been chair. I don't remember what year me and Sean went to DC. That's why I thought it was always in DC, but I knew they would just like, somebody would go from the council. So.
I'm planning on going. I want. Oh,
Well, I think last year, the planning committee increased this amount because they wanted to expand it outside of council leadership. They wanted other council members to be able to participate. So it was at 7,000. They increased it to 15,000. So, I mean, if you're interested. You could probably, have your registration.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, so are you guys okay with this $15,000, which I mean, seems like a lot of opportunities to spend that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so go ahead.
Gonna come up. Okay, well, since I'm like the acting chair, I am very interested in going to that conference. Like, don't rule me out there. I'm interested in going, and I know there are some other ones. There's one in Florida about like the chairperson of the DD councils. They have a conference of that going on in Florida. So there are different conferences that the money could be spent on besides that one.
That's the same, that's the NACDD conference. That's the
Okay.
same one we went to.
Okay.
I ain't coming back.
So that's.
and I think we either changed this in 21 or 22, but we used to have two separate activities for funding for training, national trainings, and then we made it one. But what are we calling council leadership? Because like council leadership to me is like, cause to me, I tend to think council leadership this is just by like my reading, not like my personal opinion of my council leadership is the executive committee. So where would money fall to the staff and then any like one new I get to go in Bambi doesn't?
So staff don't come out of plan contract money.
That's
They come out of our regular budget. So if staff would travel for something, it doesn't come out of these contractual amounts. I came during COVID, so how decisions were made about who got to attend what conference, I don't know. My best guess is the chair decided, like people would say if they were interested and the chair determined who.
I think when I went, I was the like chair, maybe of the education committee at that time. And so
Okay.
it kind of went And I wanted to go and I was, yeah. And also, I think it was about developing leadership also.
Right.
So there was some decisions about, you know, like who was gonna be moving into roles and that type of thing, because that was really important. And and that's one thing that we haven't, COVID really has been detrimental, I think, to the council and having that development of, you okay?
My ears are ringing.
Okay, I thought I said something offensive. I hope that
Just
wasn't.
your voice.
Sorry.
It's just here, saying.
Yeah, so I think that it's been detrimental of not being able to get that leadership training and developing new leaders.
Right.
And so I think we really need to be thoughtful in how, who will be the next chair, and who will be on the next executive committee, and how do we prepare them?
Okay.
That's my advice to, I would say, you won't, it's not just a trip somewhere, it's about who's taking.
That work is
Doing,
pivotal, and that is exactly, I think that is much needed because even like we all did, even Robert's rules training, and I just think that of utmost importance.
mhm. Okay, so this is our last item in goal one, and I think we'll better break for lunch. So if we have a decision on, do you want to, the recommendation is to keep it at 15,000, is that what you guys want to keep it there? Okay, so we'll keep it at 15. And we will now, man, you guys are so good, like we're perfect on time. So we'll break for lunch and we'll come back at 1 for discussion of goal